Hello and welcome to the Position 6 podcast. My name is Dan Offen, aka Mr. Big Germs. In this show, I get to know people involved in the Dota 2 scenes, talking about everything Dota aside from the actual murdering of virtual wizards. My first 3 episodes featured PPD, Insania and KBBQ, and you can go back to check those out now. I'm proud of all 3 of them, and they're great listening for any Dota fans, so listen to them after this if you get the chance. This week's episode is of Dominic Black Reitmeiter. Actually, I don't know how to pronounce that. I should have asked him that in the episode that follows. But anyway, Black has been one of my favourite Western players for a long time, ever since he was tearing it up with Mouse on a regular basis. Early on in his career, he took the brave step of moving to China to join LGD International, a super team also featuring Prycat and Misery that never quite took off as it should have. Unlike the others, he actually stayed in the East, learning the language and placing highly and winning tournaments with Vici and Faceless. He's been quite quiet recently, seen more often at the analyst desks at LANs rather than a booth, but I expect he'll be back to where he belongs soon enough. The interview will start after this song.
You always wanted to live in a lighthouse, looking out to sea. When you talked of living on that cliff top, I always pictured me.
So are you currently looking for a team?
Well, yes, but the biggest issue actually was just when the season started, I was supposed to play with a couple of big names, but I broke my hand, of course.
Oh yeah, is it getting better? You cast off?
Yes, the cast is off, the brace is off. I just need about 4 or 5 weeks for it to completely heal. Okay. But like all the functions of the wrist and the hand are restored already, so I can play without discomfort.
Fair, that's good to hear.
Yeah, but of course it's like a major setback. It's when the season starts, you know. You're supposed to start playing, start that climb to the top, and instead you're just sitting on the sidelines watching.
It must be really frustrating.
Yeah, it was really rough.
Do you mind telling me who you were going to be playing with?
A couple of the newbie players.
Okay.
So obviously there was like a really big chance for me. And then I was like, yeah, let's go. 5 days later, they're like, you guys want to scrim? I'm like, nope.
That's a big shame.
Yeah, of course, being sad doesn't really help, you know. So I'm just trying to look for like positives in the future rather than just being sulky.
Is the plan definitely to join another Chinese team or another team from this region?
I don't really necessarily mind joining any team in any region, as long as there's like a perspective to it, you know, some kind of potential. But yeah, of course, that would have been like the perfect opportunity for me. So now I kind of have to scout for the next chance, you know, to get back into it.
Do you expect that will be presumably after a major or after a big tournament when people begin to shuffle a little bit more?
It's hard to say at this point. Usually after the season starts, kind of everybody like found their home already. And making changes in these big teams is kind of rare at the time. So I'm expecting to just play in a not so well-recognized team at first and kind of just, you know, climb the ranks.
When I was talking through with other people kind of around the time of the reshuffle, a lot of people talk about their prestige and the way that they're seen and their kind of cred at the time. Do you think you have to rebuild that? Because you've not kind of been in a big name team for a little while. Don't take that the wrong way. Do you feel there's a rebuilding in your reputation that needs to happen?
Oh, definitely, for sure. I mean, for a little while now, as you said, I haven't really been competing at the top. I think after Faces, pretty much, I haven't been competing at the top. So people don't have the like highest value opinion about me, probably. So I definitely got some rebuilding to do. But, you know, I'm more than prepared to do it and willing to work hard to get back into it. So it should not be like too far off.
But Faceless, you did very well at Faceless. That was a good team. The results were really strong. Yeah,
the only annoying part was that whenever we got to international lands, we really underperformed. It was only during the end of it when we did some role switching that we actually found some success in lands. That was like a bit of a shame because I thought the team had a lot more potential than we actually ended up showing.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of things factor into a LAN. How comfortable are you? How nervous are you? There's way too many things that factor in when you're trying to play on a LAN instead of, you know, the comfort from home.
Do you enjoy LANs?
Oh, I love LANs. I strongly consider myself a LAN player.
Okay.
So I actually play stronger than online.
Why do you think that is?
And, I just really get immersed in the hype of the crowd, just being there. Kind of just makes me feel very serious about everything, 100% focused. Whereas at home, you can kind of sometimes feel not as motivated to play, maybe.
No, I can totally understand what you're talking about. I think I've been trying to understand the mentality of shifting between big LANs and kind of not pub games, but kind of online tournaments. Does it feel very different when you're playing in front of a crowd, in front of an audience? And there's a sense of occasion that makes you play differently. Because some people like to try and make LAN tournaments feel as if they're the same as a normal pub game so they can feel more comfortable. Are you very much not in that camp?
Yeah, I think it really depends on how it affects you, right? For example, at first, when I played my first TI, I was super nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of that, like being nervous and playing a bit worse because of that, like I was like even sweating, getting like sweaty palms and all that.
Yeah.
Just because of how nervous I was. But then I think it all changed when I played in VG and we had that really big tournament before like all the shuffles ended. What was it? I think DAC.
Yeah, DAC. Second in DAC you got, didn't you?
Yeah, we played against Secret and we had like the first big LAN mega creep comeback ever. And ever since that moment, I think, I just become one with the hype rather than being scared of it. Because after that, I was like, I hate to admit it, but I might have broken a headset.
Oh, really?
So I was like, I was super hyped. And I was like, holy shit. I'm really happy, really hyped. And ever since then, it's my strength rather than my weakness.
That's a good thing to be. And you're obviously wanting to get back to that.
Oh, yeah, man. I'm hungry. There's like two kind of players. One is you're like hungry, like a starving monster. That's me right now. And then there's like people that have been there for a long time, and they're like more like a lazy fat bee,
Do you mean that? Is that a harsh thing to say?
No, it's not harsh. It's just they're so comfortable up there. Yeah. They don't actually need to work hard to achieve anything. Maybe because they have talent or because they've always been around there. Doesn't really matter, but. They are where they want to be, so they don't really feel the need to work harder. But of course, for me, I'm very far away from where I want to be. So
you've always been a player who's worked very hard, though. That's always kind of been the perception of you from the outside. Do you think that's true? You've always been that hardworking, industrious player.
Mostly, yes, but I've had times where I was also very complacent. Mainly when I was playing like these high-level teams. It just kind of sometimes gets to you. You're like at the top already, like I worked really hard to get here. Maybe I should just, enjoy life a bit more or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've done it for a couple of months without really realizing it. But when somebody told me, I was like, holy shit, you're actually right. I've been working so much harder before. Why did I stop now? And that's kind of like when I got back into it again.
Something I was reading quite a lot of interviews from you during preparation for this, and something you've always mentioned is that your admiration for the work ethic of the Chinese scene. You're one of the few people I think who's played in both scenes kind of to the degree that have actually been involved in teams properly. Do you still think that's true, that the Chinese have a more industrious work ethic in terms of Dota than the Western scene?
It's probably still very much true because the Western teams, they like to maybe play 2 best of 3s a day, where the Chinese generally play 3 up to 4. So just like the raw amount of games, they always play more. But of course, that doesn't mean they necessarily work a lot more or whatever, because maybe the West does more like replay analysis and everything. You can't really tell because there's so much that goes into preparation, maybe playing, maybe analysis, maybe just like preparing as a team, talking about strategies and all that. I think just the raw amount of work that gets put in, the Chinese are probably still ahead. But it's like hard to compare the two because of how differently they work.
What would you describe, if you were to fairly briefly summarize that difference, what would you describe as the main difference between the Eastern and the Western scene?
I think the Chinese teams do a lot of more like raw powering, they just play more games, get better through that. But the West plays a little bit less games, but do more analytical work.
Do you think that's helped the West? And because obviously the West have won the last 2 internationals. Do you think that's the reason that China have struggled recently in the international?
It's hard to tell because for me personally, coming into TI, LGD was my personal favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And that they actually didn't make it in the very end and lost out to OG, I couldn't believe it. Because I just thought they're so strong, So maybe that like lacking analytical work Like it seemed like in the finals they weren't as prepared as OG. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it felt like that.
Yeah. Like I don't want to undermine anyone, but on paper, I think most people thought LGD is much better than OG.
Mhm.
But OG just completely out-strategized them and outplayed them in their regard. And then they just had no chance whatsoever in the end. And I was really surprised by that.
It was surprising because, I mean, even in the games, if you watch the first opening parts of the games, LGD seemed dominant for a lot of the games they even lost. And it's a difficult thing to understand, I think, quite why that happened.
I mean, that's the story of OG, though, of this TI. They were behind so many times, and every time they just come back. Like, even if the game is over for you, OG will find a way to come back. And it was really quite scary to see, you know? You're that far behind, you're that far ahead, and suddenly your opponent seems to be stronger than when the game is even.
Do you take a lot of inspiration from OG and this kind of the story of OG, this one, but obviously kind of players like Seb Seven Fucking Mad, who, similar to yourself, I think, has been in a lot of teams before he kind of went back to OG that didn't necessarily work out the way he expected to, and kind of shifted between teams, and now he's kind of hit it big with one team that's done really well. Is there do you like to take inspiration from that, or do you think your story is somewhat different?
I think there's like two sides of the coin. Of course, everybody that's like somewhat older, has been playing for a long time, is like, wow, he's actually quite old and he managed to do it just like that. But that's also the thing. OG, before that TI run, everybody thought they're somewhat weak. People maybe gave them credibility to go to like top 8, but nothing higher, you know? And suddenly they just like, they almost get eliminated in groups, and people are still kind of, you know, doubting them. They're like, what's going on here? But then suddenly they just like run through the winner bracket all the way to the grand final. And every time they won, they're like, yeah, EG is going to beat them. Yeah, EG is going to beat them. And every time they just won, it was insane. I don't really know what happened or how it happened, but they like destroyed all the predictions. But of course, it's easy to say you're inspired, you know? But at the same time, I don't think something like this will happen again.
Okay.
I mean, how do you even explain this? They were losing everything just before TI. They make this new edition, and suddenly they just win everything. Like, how does that just happen? You know, it's like a wonder run. Like, that's like the number one Cinderella story ever in Dota.
A lot of people have told me it's a honeymoon thing. That teams often play better when they first come together. You've obviously been in a lot of teams. Has that often been the case for you, that teams you've just joined, there's kind of a brief, incredible period?
Yes, mostly because, you know, everybody's just happy with each other, you know? You don't really see each other's problems until like a couple of months down the road. That basically just means you don't need to work to fix these problems because you don't see them in the first place, you know? They usually just surface after a while. And it might be true, and I don't know, maybe it was just, you know, some kind of magic. It was insane, nonetheless. It's very hard to explain this kind of thing. But, you know, I was very happy for Seb because, of course, he's been around forever, for as long as I have. And seeing him win a TI is super nice.
Talking kind of a little bit more about you, I suppose, my assessment of your career is that the thing that you're known for being really, really good at, and the thing that a carry who's very good at farming very, very quickly and very good at being the big man in a game.
Mm-hmm.
The meta over time's kind of shifted away from the type of player that you are. So in a way, you're kind of a victim of your own talent to a degree. Do you think that's true?
Personally, I mean, probably even nowadays to an extent, what you said is people see me as this like hard carry specialist that likes to farm fast and then come online fast. But if I describe my own biggest strength, at least from what I gathered over the years, is my diversity of my hero pool. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't mind playing like carry X or offlane X, like whatever hero you pick me, I will most likely be able to play, and most likely be able to play in any lane as well. Like in my most successful teams, I played like carry Brewmaster, carry X, and then offlane Miranas and stuff, you know, offlane Voids. I wasn't really limited by lanes or heroes. And I think if you have a player like that, that is like an immense strength because nobody can really predict you. And I think personally that's my biggest strength. And I never really enjoyed carrying like that too much.
Okay.
It just kind of felt like it's hard to find people for the job,
Yeah.
So I much rather enjoy playing like a tiny jumping in your face and just destroying you rather than sitting back and watching other people try to do it. You know what I mean? It's just much more fun to get in people's faces and kill them. I mean, that's what Dota is about.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's it's interesting to hear, because if you were to read if someone were to summarize you who didn't know you that well, they would describe you as, I mean, the number one name for you in China is Burning's protege, for example. And I mean, obviously Burning has a huge range of heroes. And do you think that you have modeled yourself on Burning to a degree, or is that also unfair?
No, I think I have, especially during the early parts of my career, simply because he was kind of my role model. I've watched pretty much every replay of him in Dota 1 and kind of tried to tailor my play around that. But the style he had worked really well back then because people were just worse. Nowadays, you can't just sit back and farm anymore. You always got to be actively thinking of how you can do the best for your team and not for yourself. For example, you have this free farm lane, and instead of farming more, you want to. I mean, of course, there's a certain amount of heroes where farming more is going to help your team more than being active around the map. For example, you're a life stealer, you're free farming on the safe lane. You want to put that farm into pressure, especially if your team is behind early. You don't just want to sit there and farm.
Yeah.
Simply because it's not going to help your team out that much at the end. And I think that's also a big reason, or a big lesson that I learned after a while.
And do you think that shift is because people have got better, or is there a meta shift in terms of the way the game's changed?
I think it's somewhat of both. The game definitely changed to be a bit more fast-paced, but people also got so much better at just playing aggressively, Back then, you would just try lane, safe lane, get your carry super fat. Nowadays, it's not going to work anymore, simply because you're going to lose the other two lanes. If you lose two lanes, it's really, really hard to win in Dota.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it most of the time. These big carries that suffer early and can come back after a while. What is the best hero's name? Probably Spectre. Suffers really hard early game and then just comes back through fighting.
Do you think that's something different in the mentality of younger players who are coming up now as opposed to people who grew up with the old Dota? Do you think there's a difference in the way that younger players play the game?
I mean, there's definitely a difference, but I actually think most of the younger players, except Topson, most of the younger players actually like to be, they like to play carries from the mid lane, basically. So, yes, they play differently. They play much more aggressively because they don't really think too much, Where I'm assessing all the possibilities. If I do this, what's going to happen? They're just all right, I'm going. That's the only thing in their head. I'm going. How can I make this play the best play possible? Whereas I would be, what is the chance of this happening, I'm more calculating, whereas they're just more carefree, which in some cases can be really good, can be really bad. There's positives and negatives to both. But these bets, these maybes, all of them, they really like to just play this hero in mid lane that can take over the game, carry the game. Invokers, Embers, Storms. So if anything, the carry role has become more like a filler role, You kind of just play what you have to play. If it's a hard carry, then all right, you play the hard carry. If it's something more active like Avenge, like a Tiny, then you play that instead. It's not really the role that it used to be, I think.
Did you find it difficult to adapt to that?
Actually, not at all, because I really love playing my Axes, my Pudges, all that stuff. I really love these heroes. So if anything, that change actually helped me, I think.
Okay. So do you think when you find that next team, the big team, this is now your time to shine?
Time to shine is relative, but I would so only one captain that actually really used my strength, and it was F. had my most success as well. He would just draft me, Invokers, Axes, Brewmasters, Tinies, just be active. And then Super, I hope you still remember him. He has been around for a while.
Oh, no, Super's one of my favorite players of all time. I love Super.
He would just then play Medusa or Invoker himself or TAs, then he would be the one playing the carry. And it just felt like when we use this kind of playstyle, at least back then we always did way better. So I just hope that wherever I end up being, that my hero pool gets used,
Yeah.
Because I'm very proud of my hero pool. I play a lot of different heroes. I play a lot of Dota. And yeah, I just want to, use it.
No, of course. Do you think I want to talk a little bit back on Vici, because you've kind of mentioned Vici as probably your most successful. Would you say that Vici is your most successful team?
Yeah, by far probably. It was when I won my first LAN, got high placements in multiple LANs. And, there's always a speculation, what would have happened if I didn't get removed back then, blah, 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 blah. But, things, like all the things happen for a reason.
I was trying to read about why, because it was a while back and I couldn't remember. Why did you leave Vici? What ended up happening there?
Well, I didn't really leave. I mean, I would never leave a team like that. That would be insane. But what happened is we got second at DSC, and then I don't know if it was during or before that Hao became a free agent, and at the time Hao was like considered the monster carry of the scene,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they just wanted to like better the lineup.
Fair, it's a shame.
And then it was because like they mentioned that communication is the main problem, and if we are like that dominant already with having these communication problems, I was working hard to like resolve them. I was like studying Chinese 2 hours a day when we were at our boot camp, and I thought I was getting like a lot better at it.
Yeah,
I could like have daily conversations, like of course nothing like super advanced, but in discussions I could partake, not perfectly, but to a certain extent. And then I was just like working really hard to get better, so having it happen to me was kind of shitty, because at the same time the shuffles and the other scenes were over already, so I had no opportunity to really join any other big name.
Yeah, I understand it's a difficult part of but you took a very big risk by going to China, I think, which is pretty commendable, that a lot of players would not have stepped out of their comfort zone in the way that you did. Do you regret that big risk take, or do you think it was the best thing for you in your career?
I think it was the best thing for me in regards of, okay, so I never considered myself a very talented player. For me, why I got where I was is like just through sheer amount of Dota,
Mm-hmm.
The amount of Dota I play, the amount of Dota I watch, the amount of Dota I talk about. And for me, at the time, China just seemed to work a lot harder than the West, So if I'm not very talented, like how can I be talented people? It's by working harder, right? So what's better than actually going to the region that in my view works the hardest? That's why I made the decision, just so I can like better myself. Because otherwise I would have no chance against all these talented players.
That makes sense.
It was pretty much like I don't know if it was the only decision, but I feel like it was the right decision, because it helped me like improve in the way that I thought I could improve best, if that makes sense.
I suppose if the offer for another Chinese team or another Southeast Asian team doesn't happen, will you end up heading back to the West and joining a strong Western team? Or you said earlier that it really depends on the offer but what's your preference at the moment?
I don't really have a preference. Like I've been around pretty much in all regions, in all countries. So I've had like really good living conditions, not so good ones. So I don't really care too much about where I stay. All I care about is that, it doesn't even have to be like a super strong team. It just needs to be a team that wants to work hard together and have perspective,
Yeah. Fair enough.
But of course, as I said, it's like very difficult at this point. Usually all these big changes happen at the start of the season. So joining a big team in the middle of the season is very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm more than prepared to, start from a tier lower again and just work myself up the ladder.
Who do you think are, because we're just starting the season now, I've been watching quite a lot of Western data and I haven't seen so much Eastern yet. Who do you think are the strongest people in the scene you're in, or just even globally?
Well, I think the teams that didn't really make too many changes, for example, like Forward Gaming, they were quite good at TI. They should be quite good now still. LGD, it's a shame that I don't get to see OG and Liquid at the major. I thought they were quite good as well.
But they're just taking a rest. Do you think that's quite important for teams to do?
Rest is super important. I would actually argue the only reason we didn't perform up to expectation, later on at least, is because we didn't take a break. It's like if you keep spending time with each other all the time, you start to kind of just see each other's flaws, and then you're not going to be as happy as you were before. So having a break from each other, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
Not because you hate each other, even if you're good friends. Let's say you live with your best friend in one flat, you're gonna get sick of each other after a while. Just natural.
It's happened
You
to
see
me.
that guy every day, you're like, oh, dude, you again? You know?
Yeah, especially if
It
you're
happens.
training 6 hours a day with the same people, it must become very frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, if it is 6, like in phases, we went pretty hard. We went like 8, 9, maybe 10 hours.
Mhm.
So you do that every day with the same people, the same schedule, same routine, you know? It can get. How do you even explain that? We were still good friends, you know? It's more like, man, I really don't want to work with this guy right now.
Yeah, that's understandable. Do you think the changes in the DPC season and how it's going to be working now with slightly more breaks, slightly less intense schedule, do you think that will ease that?
How hard or easy you want to go is completely up to yourself and your team, right?
Yeah.
But what's really important is that the entire team is on the same page. Like if 4 people want to go easy, one guy wants to go hard, there's a problem already.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to be satisfied, you know? Or like not everybody's going to be satisfied. And as long as one person is not satisfied, there's a problem already. Because it's like everybody in the team needs to be content and happy in order to perform. And that's why Dota is so hard, honestly, man. Or like all team games. You have 5 people, 5 different personalities. It's so hard to find the right chemistry, the right mindsets, like that mesh well with each other, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like science. It's insanely difficult to get the right mix of people.
Do you think there are any teams from your experience from being at LANs, from being across the whole scene that have really got that chemistry right? And there is a kind of, they're the perfect team that could stay together for ages.
Well, I thought Liquid was that, but even they recently seem to have like some kind of problems in that regard.
Yeah.
But you know, like for me, it was definitely them, and they all looked like they were super good friends, just enjoying the time together. You know, being on one page all the time. And if even to them something happened now, that would kind of scare me in that regard. If you know what I mean. So I just hope nothing happened or will happen to them. Just because for me, they were always like, when it came to stability, they were my like role model. They were the team that was stable and strong throughout 2 seasons, which I don't know if it like happened before, you know? That the team is that dominant without changing a player through 2 years. I don't know if it happened. Yeah, it is insane. Because the second season, nobody expected Liquid to do well at all, and they just keep winning tournaments.
It is crazy. Do you think that's the reason why all-star teams have often struggled? Because there's too many clashes of personalities and they kind of come together almost not with expecting to stay together.
I think that is a very big reason for it. You compare it kind of to like a basketball team. Like Golden State, they have like a lot of stars, right, in their own regard. And they just play well together because it's like so different if it's a real sport. It just feels like you don't have to be as happy with each other playing, you know? Because you can all kind of make your own big plays. But in Dota, it doesn't really work.
I also think Dota, there's much more pressure on the players to make decisions about who they're going to play with, and there's no isolation from those decisions.
Yes. And there's no one that actually makes those decisions for you, like there is in like real sports. In Dota, it's like personal feelings. I hate this guy. I don't want to play with him. You're done.
And there's no one telling you, you've got to play with him. Shut up, effectively.
Exactly. If you do it in basketball, you want to act like that, then your career is in danger, you know?
Yeah.
But in Dota, it's actually very normal. If you don't like a guy, you don't want to play with him. Like, there's no difference between like personal life and professional life, you know? I think that's the biggest obstacle Dota has to overcome after a while, that people actually realize you don't have to be good friends in order to play well with someone. If your mindset matches well, your chemistry is there, yes, maybe you hate each other, but you can be insanely good teammates.
Do you think having coaches and more powerful coaches will help teams move to a point? Do you think that's a positive change that will be made in Dota? Or do you think it's best the way it currently is?
I think coaches got empowered a lot already, right? During the draft, which is like a massive change. Like before, they were just allowed to be outside the booth and not even interact with the players at all. Nowadays, you see coaches actually doing the draft for the team in all these big games. And I think it's a massive advantage just because you have a 6th person that can do so much more research and preparation, whereas you can just focus on fine-tuning your own play.
Have you ever thought about moving into coaching?
I've thought about it a lot, But okay, for me, there's this mentality that I have. Other people might think I'm like very bad. It's not possible for me to play at pro anymore. But as long as I have the feeling that I can still beat the people that are at the top, like I'm not quitting, you know.
Yeah.
No matter what other people think of me. Like some people think I'm a super good player. Other people think I'm the worst player in Dota. But in the end, what's important is how I feel about myself. If I feel like I can't beat these big players anymore, that's the time when I'll step down.
Do you think moving into coaching, would you see it as a failure then?
It's not necessarily a failure. It's more like, at least during the time, maybe something happens like in Matt's case. At least during the time, you kind of have to just admit you can't play as well as the other people, you know? There's something that needs to happen first for you to get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy, like, for example, Matt, is prime example. It happened for him. He managed to come back and play at a pro level again. I think a lot of old people came back.
Yeah.
You know, after seeing that, they were like, "Oh man, if he does it, I'm gonna do it. Let's go."
But there must be coaches who just want to be coaches, and they like. There's different skills, surely, to being a coach to being a player, and some people see themselves as being better at one than the other.
I definitely. For example, the LGD coach, 357 QQQ, whatever you want to call him, he has been a coach for years. I think 5 years now, and he's doing a magnificent job at just keeping the team calm, keeping the team together, doing the draft and everything. It's just, the guy's a monster coach, I think. He's probably the best coach in the scene for me.
That really changed my view of how Dota can work and what Dota will be. Seeing him in the booth kind of drafting for them, I think it's an important shift.
I worked with him, and I can tell you, working with a good coach is like such a huge benefit. To improve as a player, to improve as a team. There's so many things you won't ever see that the coach just comes to after the game, and he's like, "Hey, you did that," and you weren't even aware of it. You know, it's like some kind of bad habit, and he just tells you, "You did that," and then you go over the replay, and then you fix it, and suddenly you're a much better player than you were before.
You've been doing quite a lot of analysis and panel work at the moment. Do you enjoy that?
I mean, it's hard to say I enjoy it. I don't dislike it. It's more like I would rather be playing than doing that. It's more just like a way to stay in the scene, interact with the scene, you know, in a good way. But definitely playing is the higher priority for me.
I mean, I'm really impressed by your work as an analyst. I think you're quite good at it. Is it something in 5 years, when you're 30 and you're looking to shift away from full-time playing, it's something you'd want to move into?
It's definitely worth consideration. I definitely want to stay in gaming one way or another. I didn't really think too much about what happens after I don't play anymore.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, like, you know, just stay around and do analysis work, maybe be a coach, maybe start my own kind of organization just to foster players, maybe start some kind of academy or whatever. There's like a lot of plans and ideas I have floating around, but it's really hard to think about it too much when you're still, you know, when it's still uncertain how long you're going to be playing.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were only 25 is what I'm saying, because you've been in the scene for so long, and you've been...
I started really young, yeah.
So you've effectively been involved in Dota for your entire adult life and most of your non-adult life, to be honest. What do you think it's brought you outside of Dota? It's almost a job interview question, this, but in terms of transferable skills, what do you think Dota's brought you as a person?
I think the biggest skill that I've gotten was just, you know, during school and whatever, I was somewhat like lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important ability that I gained through gaming, self-awareness, that even if you're doing really well, you're not actually some kind of omni being, you know, that's above everybody else. And secondly, that hard work is super important, not only in gaming or whatever, just in life in general. You want to succeed somewhere, you got to work super hard. If you don't work hard, somebody else is going to work harder than you, and they're going to opportunity that you were looking for.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think we're kind of reaching the end here, to be honest. Is there anything you'd like to bring up or talk about yourself?
Thanks for the people that are still supporting me. Really appreciate it. Stay strong, guys, because, you know, you're in for a wild ride. It's going to be a good one. So thanks for sticking around. You'll be rewarded soon.
That's good. It's good to hear. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, it's gonna be good, man. I've not been, especially after what happened to my hand, I've not been so eager and hungry and just mad, you know? I'm just mad. I just want to get back into it and destroy something or someone. Not physically, of course, just in the game.
Well, certainly not physically after what happened to your hand.
No, never, man. I would never hit a person.
What did happen to your hand, out of interest?
A mountain bike accident.
Oh, dear.
I just flat fell off a little mountain. Around 15 meters, landed on my hand, and
Jesus.
that's it, man. It was rough.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear you're okay.
I'm good. It could have been a lot worse. So
Yeah.
just getting like a, broken wrist it's not good, but a lot of things could have been worse in that regard. I'm just glad that I'm, not hurt more.
We used to run as fast as we could, holding our arms out like planes. But when I did it then, you looked at me like I was crazy, and you started putting your coat on in the rain.
Thank you for listening to the Position 6 podcast, and a huge thanks to Black for appearing on it. I wish him the best of luck in finding a successful new team, and I'm sure everybody from the community would love to see him succeed as much as I would. Thank you again for all your support so far. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I can be found at Daniel Offen, that's Daniel and then OFFEN. It would be a great help if you were to share and talk about the podcast wherever you can. I have been attracting respectable audiences, which I'm really proud of and pleased to have got, but booking guests still isn't as easy as I'd like it to be. And people are more likely to appear on a podcast they've actually heard of, so whatever you can do to help would be massively appreciated. I'm still planning on releasing new episodes every week, and my guest next week is Charlie Yang, who's best known as the old manager of Evil Geniuses, Speed Gaming and Dignitas. He's an important figure in the development of Dota as a scene, so I'm really excited to talk to him, and also just because I've always really enjoyed his work in front of the camera, so I think it'll be a really good fun episode, so tune in for that next week. Once again, I appear on another podcast called Faking Lit, which you can find on all good podcast platforms. It's a lot of fun and is basically an improv show. We just talk about books and mess around. We're in the middle of a Harry Potter series, and we just did Goblet of Fire, which is a very silly episode with a lot of great and maybe some slightly questionable jokes. Check it out. If you're curious about what the intro and outro music is, it's from Daniel Kitson and Gavin Osborne's record, The Ballad of Roger and Grace, which is a stand-up show / storytelling show / a little bit of a musical album. I think it's really wonderful. I'm trying to feature music that I think is quite good on this show, just to change things up a little bit. So let me know if you actually appreciate that or it's a little bit annoying. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening, and I'll see you next week.